that going. All right, good evening. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of Monday, July 28th, 2025. I now call the meeting to order. It's time for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have Vice Chair Zick lead us tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anna, will you please do the voice roll call?
Chair Harlan.
Here.
Vice Chair Zick.
Here.
Commissioner Rojas.
Here.
Commissioner Klepak is absent. Commissioner Andrade.
Here.
Commissioner Dixon.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
We have no announcements or presentations this evening. It takes us to public comments for matters not listed on the agenda. Public comments will be heard at this time on items that are not listed on the agenda but are within our jurisdiction. I will open public comment. If you'd like to speak, please come to either podium, or if you are participating by Zoom, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of the screen. And if you're joining the meeting by phone and would like to speak, please press star 9. Do we have any members of the public in chambers who wish to speak? All right, seeing none. Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom?
Cynthia McDonald, you may provide your public comment.
Good evening, Cynthia McDonald, Costa Mesa resident. Years ago, there was a resident who would come to city meetings and speak about good governance. I wish she was still doing that. Given the allegations in the lawsuit filed by the former city manager against the city, it's time to remind ourselves what good municipal governance looks and sounds like. It doesn't sound like silence. Silence can be construed as compliance or complacency. There are those of you who never have comments, whether at the beginning of the meeting or during the consideration of an agenda item, and that is just wrong. You need to inform the citizens of Costa Mesa of your justification and thoughts leading up to the decision on your vote on an item. It's called accountability. Democratic accountability from government leaders is a vital piece of successful governance. It reduces the risk of power abuse and corruptive practices. It enables checks and balances and prevents the concentration of power by making each of you responsible for your actions. Unless you speak to your actions tonight, we won't know if you are acting in the community's best interest. Right now, because of the allegations against the mayor, the court of public opinion is casting doubt on every person sitting up on that dais. We, the people of Costa Mesa, need assurance that you are taking your responsibilities seriously. Accountability is only one of the principles of good governance, but in my mind, it is the most important. I hope you consider it important too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Anna?
No, there's not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I will now close public comments. Takes us to Planning Commissioner comments and suggestions. Sorry, turn that off. Let's start to my left with Commissioner Martinez.
Yes, thank you. All right, so first, I wanted to just ask a question of planning staff that can then be answered at the end of the meeting, and that is, when will the ADU templates, the template plans, be available? The website says that they will be available in the early part of 2025, and I do believe that we are now past the early part. So in the director's report at the end of the meeting, if I could get an answer for when that will be available, I would really appreciate that, especially since my dad has been asking me about that. So I really want an answer. Next, I wanted to mention that at the last city council meeting, the city council overturned one of our decisions regarding Victoria Place. There is a part of our zoning code, our municipal code, section, 1329H2, that requires that the Planning Commission review city council action if the city council made a major amendment to the application. And I do think that the city council may have done a major change. So I think it would be interesting to actually apply that section of the zoning code and bring it back for us to report back to the city council on that major change. Again, that's section 1329H2, though I'll defer to, of course, the city attorney's office if, in fact, there was a major change in that application. Next, the events. The big one and the fun one for me is the open house, the Neighborhoods Where We All Belong open house for housing opportunities, which is Wednesday, July 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Norma Herzog Community Center. If you ask me, this is about 2 years overdue, so I am greatly looking forward to this event and what comes of it. Next, tomorrow is Concerts in the Park. The Pacific Symphony is going to be at Fairview Park. There will be the pre-show at 5 p.m. They'll start performing at 6 p.m. Very exciting, and hope that you can attend if you want to. And then I just wanted to end by saying, I believe the last meeting that was held in this chamber was the city council meeting last time. And there was a small group of small people who made some very disturbing comments. And I just want to say that I'm very happy that the vast majority of the people that were in this room supported our Latino community. The vast majority of the people I've heard from, both in person and online, have supported and have fought against those hateful comments, and I'm very happy to see that from our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dixon?
Thank you very much. Just been having a great summer with all the events that the city has, and appreciate Commissioner Martinez mentioning the open house. I think that's going to be a great event. I hope it's very, very well attended. And then the concerts in the park, of course. Been out at the fair volunteering on some stuff. It's been a really great event. I encourage everybody to get out to the Pacific Amphitheater. Even if the fair is sold out, if there are tickets available at the Pacific Amphitheater, that's one way you can get in, and the concerts are phenomenal. Just one general comment to staff about Tessa. If we've been having some, been working on Tessa, been playing with it and experimenting with it and all that good stuff. If there are any public sort of, I don't know, not a study session necessarily, but a survey or some sort of feedback so that we can kind of understand any challenges people are having with Tessa, and that we can sort of address those head on instead of people just being frustrated, because I had an opportunity to discuss some of the issues I was having with staff and got some great answers, and already have seen some improvements in that process. So I think daylight is the best for any issues we may have with Tessa, and I would just, if we do have something coming up, or if we have a resource that we can point the public to besides the FAQs and all that on the website, that might be something worth looking into. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Andrade?
Yes. First, a couple of things. Also, on July 30th, there is going to be a job fair at the brand new Goodwill that is opening up on Harvard Boulevard. So many of our communities enjoy and support Goodwill. I recommend any local residents to come and participate in that job fair. I hear offers may be provided right on the spot. Also, huge shout out to one of our strongest business partners here in Costa Mesa, IKEA. They are hosting our annual Newport Mesa School District Backpack Drive. There's going to be students can come in and receive from 9 to 12 right in the IKEA parking lot, receive haircuts, shoes, socks, and a myriad of local community services to support and ensure that our local students have all the resources that they need right on site. In addition to that, I want to do a huge shout out to Costa Mesa Unidos, an organization that got together in collaboration with Councilmember Arliss Reynolds in gathering the resources and support of local community to drive donations. Again, also collected at IKEA. Anybody can stop by. There's bins available right in the IKEA store. You can drop off essentials. I invite you all to go check out Councilmember Reynolds for all the information, but all the toiletries, essentials, what is it, non-perishable foods that you can drop off while you're shopping at IKEA, and all of that is being delivered to families that are struggling across our communities. So highly encourage you all to participate. So this is a huge shout out for IKEA for stepping up for our community on this annual basis, for not only for our students, but also community-wide. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rojas?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Zick?
Thank you. I don't have too many comments, but I would like to speak to a set of slides that I've submitted to staff. And I believe Mr. Yang will be putting them on the screen and then advancing them as I ask him to. So the topic, this is a topic for longtime viewers of the Planning Commission that has concerned me. And this is a standard condition of approval that has periodically shown up on projects. Generally, they're infill residential projects, and it basically suggests that a project could increase its finished grade by up to 30 inches. And in doing so, and then adding a 6-foot wall around that property, I think creates a situation to the adjacent properties that might not be anticipated and might not be welcome. There's a specific location where this has occurred, and the next several slides show pictures of that, so I can better illustrate my concern. For those of you familiar with this development in the Mesa Verde area, it is the Miraval 1 and Miraval Phase 2 developments. And these are single-family residential homes. And the area that I'm particularly concerned about is the red line that you see that goes along Andros. And before I proceed, let me point out, I'm not trying to change anything about this project. I'm not trying to comment or criticize how it was that this was approved. I will point out that I've had several discussions with Director Tai, and neither she nor any of her current planning staff, at least those in the room, I don't believe even any that she has, were involved in this project. So this isn't a hunt for those that might have approved this. But I wanted to show the conditions of this wall along the red line, because I'd like to try to make sure this doesn't happen again. Mr. Yang? Okay, so we're looking north along Andros, and what I'm referring to is this block wall, this rather long block wall that is adjacent to the Miraval Phase 2 and then the Miraval Phase 1 developments. We talk about walkability all the time, and this came up in my mind partly because we were talking about walls in our study session at the last Planning Commission meeting, and I felt it appropriate to bring this topic up at this point. So in the lower left, the picture that has the red box, I'm showing the lowest portion of the wall that exists there, and the height of that wall there is 8 feet 4 inches. Next slide. Further on down, there's a transition to the Miraval Phase 2. And you can see there's a different style of block, and you can also see that it is taller than the block wall for Phase 1. The height at this point is 10 feet tall. And if you look in the lower left, that vertical photo, you get a sense of the orientation of that wall and its proximity to the sidewalk. And you see that there's a gap in the sidewalk at that point between the wall and the sidewalk. Next slide. So a little further down, you can see in the top picture that the height of the wall actually increases again. At this point, it is 10 feet 6 inches tall. 10 feet, 6 inches tall. You can also see that about at this point, the gap between the wall and the sidewalk goes away. You can't walk on this sidewalk adjacent to that wall with somebody else walking alongside of you without the potential risk of actually banging your arm into these 1-inch protrusions of the concrete block wall. Maybe the next slide shows it a little better. So you can see the gap, the lower left, the gap on the sidewalk goes away. These protrusions stick out 1 inch, and neither this block wall nor the Miraval Phase 1 block wall are actually finished block walls. They're just raw concrete masonry units. I think this is not attractive. I don't think it's inviting. If you walk along this stretch of the road, you'll see that it is largely used to park vehicles long-term. It is not at all what I think we ought to be having when we're approving walls. Now, we have a provision that talks about allowing a 30-inch grade difference on these infill residential projects. We have another provision of the code that speaks to the idea that there could be a maximum 3-foot high retaining wall for that grade separation, and on top of that, a 6-foot high wall. That'd be 9 feet. I think we've got to be very careful in approving residential infill projects with walls that are exceeding 6 feet high. I don't know if there's a way to accomplish this in our code. We do have these code revisions that we're talking about on our agenda tonight, which is why I bring this up. I believe this is the last slide, Mr. Yang, is that correct? Correct. Okay, thank you. That concludes my comments.
All right, thank you for that presentation. I have no comments this evening, so that'll take us to consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar tonight. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted on in one motion. There's no separate discussion of these items unless members of the commission, staff, or the public request an item to be pulled. The remainder of the balance would be discussed immediately thereafter. Anna, do we have any items pulled tonight?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have a motion for the consent calendar item 1?
Move the item.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Martinez. Second by Vice Chair Zick. Let's call for the question.
That motion carries 6-0.
We have 2 public hearing items tonight. Anna, would you please read the title for public hearing item number 1, please?
Public hearing item number 1, conditional use permit PCUP-25-0007 to operate an animal kenneling facility with auxiliary veterinary services, Priceless Pets at 126 East 16th Street. Please note we have received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Commissioners, any ex parte communications? Vice Chair Zick?
I spoke with a member of the public today about this project, and I also reviewed the Planning Commission video for a closely related project that was before us back in November of 2024.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez?
I visited the site today.
All right. Okay.
I also visited the site and spoke to one of our members of the animal care committee of the city to get their insight.
Commissioner Rojas?
I just visited the area on the site, yeah.
All right. I will now turn over to Mr. Raimondo for the presentation.
Thank you, Chair Harlan. And good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Raimondo, Assistant Planner with the Economic and Development Services Department. And the item before you tonight is a conditional use permit application for the business called Priceless Pets. The proposal is a conditional use permit request for a new animal kenneling facility for rescue animals, in which will operate from Tuesday to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and will be occupying an existing industrial building on the site. There will also be ancillary veterinary services to care for the rescue animals, and other improvements would involve restriping the existing parking area. The subject property is 126 East 16th Street, which the site you can see boxed in blue, and the aerial photo is located on the north end of East 16th Street and is the third lot west of Newport Boulevard. The site is zoned MG, which stands for General Industrial, and within the vicinity of the site are auto-related businesses to the east and west of the site. The adjacent property to the rear is the existing Ramada Hotel, and across East 16th Street to the south is the Sea Breeze Villas Mobile Home Park. Now, the existing site is 18,265 square feet in size, and it has two existing buildings attached to each other as highlighted in yellow and blue in the aerial photo. The building in blue is currently occupied by a group counseling use called Barn Life Recovery, and on the northeastern portion of the site is a detached storage building as highlighted in red. The proposed business is requesting to occupy the building in yellow, which is 6,480 square feet in size, and will be utilizing the space as an animal killing facility with veterinary services for rescue animals. Behind the building is a 1,586 square foot concrete paved area, which will be utilized as a play area for the animals in the facility. The play area would be enclosed by the building walls of the adjacent properties and an existing 8-foot-high metal fence. Now, the play area will be utilized during business hours. However, the area will be limited to a maximum of 2 animals at a time. And the business will also maintain the outdoor play area by disposing animal waste and urine by utilizing wet vacuuming and a chemical cleaner. There are also parking spaces at the front of the site, which will be restriped to accommodate 7 parking spaces. And also to note, per Assembly Bill 2097, due to the site being located within a half-mile of 2 major transit stops, which are on the intersection of Newport Boulevard and West 17th Street, the city is barred from imposing a minimum parking requirement for the project. Expanding on the operations of the business, the city currently has a contract with Priceless Pets that requires the business to secure a facility to allow for general intake for the city's animal control officers, in addition to providing standard veterinary care, which this site would fulfill. The business will consist of 3 to 4 employees and will have a couple office rooms and a reception area. There are also 2 mezzanines utilized for storage purposes only. And as seen on the floor plan, the business will have a large open area for the kenneling of the rescue animals with an anticipated maximum capacity of 50 animals. The business will also have a mobile veterinary unit to be stored within the building to provide veterinary care to the animals. In addition, the business will be open to the public from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. to allow for animals to return to owner and owner surrender activity. No animal adoptions, commercial boarding, or veterinary services for the public will be provided at this site. Prior to today's meeting, staff has provided public notices by mail, on site, and also in the daily pilot newspaper. There were a few email correspondences from the public who were in opposition of the project and raised noise and odor concerns with the proposed use. Emails received were from a couple of residents in the Sea Breeze Villas Mobile Home Park across the street, and also the adjacent tenant on the site, which is the group counseling use called Barn Life Recovery, also has provided an email correspondence in opposition of the project. To address potential noise and odor concerns, conditions of approval have been implemented to regulate the proposed facility, requiring the operation to maintain the outdoor area and properly dispose all waste and litter, and to also limit the outdoor area to a maximum of 2 animals at a time during business hours. A condition was also established to require all building walls to be installed with soundproofing to mitigate potential animal noise. With that said, the proposed animal kenneling facility as conditioned would be compatible with the surrounding residents and businesses and would not be materially detrimental to other properties within the area. Now, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and to approve conditional use permit 250007, subject to conditions of approval. Now, this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And the business owner, Lisa Price, is also in attendance to answer any questions this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Raimondo. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Commissioner Dixon.
Is there any, so we had this, it was approved previously in November of 2024 at a different location, and for whatever reason, that didn't go forward. But were there any challenges that were presented on that one that may be applicable to this particular application and location that staff has identified, or it just seems they got an approval and it didn't come to fruition? It may not be a city issue, it may be a property issue, but are we facing any of those same challenges here with this application, or?
I can just provide some brief clarity on that. According to the information we have on the prior application, it was a property owner level challenge and not anything related to the city approvals.
Okay. And then, so we have an MCUP for Barn Life that's been around for a while. It was a ZA, I think. I don't remember exactly the number. But there were 29 parking places required. And now we're going to have a business going in next door that, with the magic wand of AB 2097, which was for housing, which is what the legislative intent clearly stated, is now exempting commercial properties from parking requirements. I know that's not the city's control, but so how would that impact the parking issues if there becomes parking issues with the adjacent business? Because they do have a existing entitlement and requirements. I know it's a tough question, but we're going to have employees that will need to park there. We're going to have people coming, and
Good evening.
yeah, good evening.
The proposed 7 parking spaces that will remain are joint spaces with the adjacent tenant, is that correct? So maybe Jeffrey can speak a little bit to what was there previously and how this proposed use won't dramatically intensify the area for the proposal, the prior use.
Yeah, the prior use for the site was like an auto repair services use.
Which was all those vehicles parked everywhere? Okay, that would not be still the case then? It would
That's
just
correct.
Okay.
And then it's going to be replaced by this animal kennelling services with veterinary service use. Primarily, the space is going to be utilized mainly for storage of animals. They're just going to, for the space, the business is going to be operated with only 3 to 4 employees on site. So it's not going to really increase the amount of parking on the site. And then, as you mentioned, per AB 2097, staff's hands are tied on
Correct.
and imposing any parking minimums
Okay.
based on the use.
And we're just trying to head off problems because we've had expressions of concern from adjacent neighbors about the parking issues. And it's a pretty tight street with parking. So, all right, that was my question there. And then I think those are my questions for right now.
Okay. Commissioner Andrade.
Yeah, I would like to, if you can maybe dive into how exactly, further details on the Priceless Pets partnership with the city's animal control officers. Because it seems like the primary, they would be, animal control officers would be the primary ones that are, rescuing animals, picking up animals, bringing them there to be cared for. So I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how much traffic will folks actually be needing to be there at the facility, right? It seems like, what is the anticipated volume of activity that the kennel will have? Like, is the animal control the primary?
Yeah, that's correct. So the primary use of the space is the partnership with the animal control services. So the spaces to use to provide kenneling services and veterinary services for the rescue animals in conjunction with the animal control unit. The only services that's provided to the public is mainly just for return for animals, for owners to have the opportunity for owners to claim animals that are at the site,
Yeah.
and to also, if they want to surrender animals to the site. There's no commercial killing or veterinary services provided to the public. The main use for the space is for the animal services.
To support the city's needs for animal care services and all of that.
That's correct.
Great. So I think that helps to kind of clarify the volume of cars at a given time that will be needed to be on site. Sounds like predominantly it's our officers. Maybe I imagine some of this return to pet owner activity that might be by appointment or something, right? People don't just pop in whenever and like, hey, I want my dog back, right? They probably have to go through a process.
That I would have to defer to the applicant just to clarify
Okay.
on that.
Great, but thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Any other, Commissioner Rojas?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, we're gonna we have to walk the fine line of wanting to support local business, as well as make sure that the residents of Costa Mesa get what they're looking for. And one of the questions is obviously the letters that we got. There's quite a few of them, and, you know, concerned with this, with the noise. So I wanted to read one from the neighbor that shares a wall. It states where we're treating local residents for mental health orders exclusively, and a quiet environment is crucial. We practice meditative modalities as well as counseling and mental health therapy. So obviously they're addressing sound. It's very, you know, it's part of how they conduct their business, right? So I'm reading the other part of our report here. Granting the approval of animal killing use would not be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the public or otherwise injurious to the property or improvements within the immediate neighborhood. And then it goes on to say potential noise from the outdoor operations would be mitigated by limiting the number of animals outside to 2 maximum at any time. So is that the overall solution to addressing the concerns that they have of the neighbors? Is that what we're presenting, or did we have, you mentioned soundproofing. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, for regards to noise, yeah, limiting the outdoor area to just 2 animals was one of the conditions we implemented to reduce the noise, and then also to implement the condition for soundproofing for the existing building to, I guess, mitigate the potential noise for.
From inside the building itself, then, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, because I could imagine, I'm looking at the date on this one. This was sent, you know, obviously earlier today, and I'm sure this report was prepared, you know, before that. So I'm assuming that's what the city did to address the concerns of that neighbor, is limiting it to 2 versus, did we have a limit on how many animals before that, before this letter was written? Or was it like they're gonna have 5 or 10 dogs out there and it's gonna be a chaotic situation?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, with the limitation to 2 animals at a time, that's also what the applicant has proposed as well.
Okay, just wanted to clear it on that. Thank you, that's it.
All right. Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raimondo, for your presentation. I'm not overly concerned about the parking of this project, but what I am a little unclear about is the rationale that we use for dismissing any consideration of parking. And you include, I think, an excellent summary of this AB 2097, indicating that any projects that are located within a half mile of a major transit stop, that it applies to them. And I'm not clear about this being adjacent or within half mile of a major transit stop. An existing rail or bus rapid transit station. It's not saying a bus line. It's not saying a bus stop. A ferry terminal, of course, I don't think it's close to one of those, or an intersection with 2 or more major bus routes with a frequency of service interval of 15 minutes or less during morning and afternoon peak. So who is it, or how was it determined that AB 2097 was applicable to this project?
So the AB 2097 is something our Public Works Department has been working to evaluate and analyze the implementation of that. And we do have some internal resources, including a GIS layer that it identifies properties that are within the areas that are classified under the bill. So this area does fall within that area and is exempt based on the language from the state.
And so what part of the language was it that made this site qualify?
Most likely the bus and rapid transit station. Unfortunately, our internal map is down right now, and I was trying to pull up the layer, but I'm not able to access that. But and it's been down for the day. I don't anticipate it coming back up. But typically, the corridors are based on the bus transportation.
So without putting too fine a point on this, who made the determination that this project was applicable to AB 2097?
I think us and the planning department in conjunction with the Public Works Department.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. First, I want to try to attempt to answer the vice chair's question, since I happen to have the map up. The Southern California Association of Governments also has provided maps for the city of Costa Mesa with transit priority areas and major transit stops that are available on its local data exchange. So I just pulled up the map for Costa Mesa, and basically the entire southern part of the west side is covered by that under the major transit stop definition. So I wanted to share that with the vice chair and then go on to my questions. For condition of approval number 3, we state the hours of operation that are proposed, and I wanted to ask what the process is or would be if those hours of operation were requested to be changed by the applicant. What the process for that would be? Would it have to come back to us, or is it just up to the department director?
Yes, Commissioner Martinez. If the applicant were to request for a hours of operation change, it would be subject to condition number 9, where it states any change in operational characteristics, like a change of hours of operation, shall be subject to the plan division review and may require amendment to the CUP. Modifications are subject to final review authority determined by the director. So the director has the decision whether to bring it up to the Planning Commission or have it at a Planning Division level. So is that his or her discretion?
Okay. This site has no sidewalk on either side of the street. Was that fact considered? Is there anything that could have been done about it? Can you just explain that?
Yeah. So currently the site, it does not have sidewalks. That rest of that street, or majority of that street, doesn't have any sidewalks. Now the sidewalk wasn't required per the engineering division because since the proposal does not warrant a major alteration where there's no improvements that affects more than 50% of the building square footage on site, that does not trigger the requirement for a sidewalk. If you have any further questions, Engineer Yang can speak upon to that.
I think that makes sense. Thank you. And then just broad and vague, and to address the public comments, can you tell me about our noise ordinance, any of the noise mitigation measures at this site, what a recourse would be for residents? Tell me about noise.
Sorry about that, Commissioner Martinez. Yeah, when it comes to noise, if there's any excessive noise, we do have condition number 8, which the use shall be conducted at all times in a manner that will require the quiet enjoyment of the surrounding neighborhood. If the operator shall institute whatever security and operational measures as necessary to comply with this requirement. So if there's any excessive noise, then the operator will need to make adjustments according to condition number 8.
And in addition to that condition, we have our own noise ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
Good. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have more? Commissioner Dixon?
A quick follow-up question on the noise, just because Priceless Pets along Newport Boulevard, the existing location, which is sort of the retail storefront, there are homes directly behind that. Did you review as far as people with any complaints on noise for that particular facility or any other facilities? Like, I know Bark Collective on 16th Street further down has an outdoor play area. Have there been any other issues that you're aware of in the city as far as complaints about noise from outdoor play area or exercise yards or things like that? Because I know we've adopted several pets from Priceless Pets, and it can be loud inside the building because of the dogs barking. But I'm just curious how well that soundproofing works and if you've had any complaints or other issues there. And if you don't know, if you didn't look into it, that's fine, but I was just curious if you did know.
Yeah, as part of this review, I have not taken a look into the other locations, so I don't have really much insight on that.
Okay. Did you?
Yeah, and I can just share, for what it's worth, some of our planning division they aren't as close in daily touch with our code enforcement activities, but, as the director, I do see basically every single planning entitlement that comes through that has any kind of violation. And I will say that in my last 9 months here, I have not heard any complaints about animal-related businesses and noise complaints. So if that helps at all, thank you.
Thank you, it does. Thank you.
Okay, I just have a few questions, Mr. Raimondo. So the proposed animal kenneling facility is taking over what was an auto repair use. How long was that use at that location, and do we know when it ended?
I don't recall the exact year. I would say 2017, 2016, I believe. But I would have to double check that
That's when the use ceased at that location?
for the auto-related use.
Okay, but do we know how long it had been in auto use?
That I don't have that information.
Okay. And my second question has to do with the city's contract. So the applicant's obligated to find a standalone facility for the purposes that they've proposed. And it appears they've already made one attempt. Do we know in that contract, is there a date by which they need to secure a facility? Director Tai?
I'm scrolling.
Okay.
I've got the contract in front of me. I don't recall seeing a specific date, but I think the contract was entered into July of 2024. And so I can continue looking and
Okay,
maybe
that's
get
fine.
back. So it's got 89 pages, so give me a check.
Okay. Not vital. All right. Those are my questions. I'll open it up for a public hearing right now and ask whether the applicant or applicant's representative is present. Would you like to make a presentation? And if you could, I'll get your mic set up. Please state your name for the record, and then I need to ask you if you've read the staff report and if you agree with the conditions of approval.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Price, and I'm the Executive Director for Priceless Pets. And yes, I have read the conditions of approval, and I am in agreement with those. And I would like to answer, instead of making a presentation, I would just like to go right into answering some of your guys' questions and your concerns, as they all are incredibly valid. I wanted to mention that I did speak with the adjacent neighbor, and we operate over 5 locations throughout Southern California. And I will say that animal noise happens to be one of the biggest problems that we do have. So I'm not going to stand here and lie to any of you tonight. However, we do have some attenuation prepared for every location. We always want to be a good neighbor. And so to answer your question about is there, so she doesn't have to look through 89 pages. Yes, and I'm past that. Okay, just so you know. It has been an incredible challenge in your city to put this round peg in a square hole, or whatever you call it. This is my second attempt at it, as you well know. And I have been looking for a facility for over 3 years in anticipation of this contract, because the past history of this particular contract is we had an emergency contract prior to having the actual contract. Some of the parking related issues that you might, any of might have addressed is that we have been operating, in our little tiny 2,000 square foot facility on Newport Boulevard. So we are tight over there, as well as still operating our adoption center. So we are well overdue for a bigger facility. And we are having with being there for a little over 1.5 years with this part of the contract, we have a good gauge of how many people are coming in and out based on that particular use, as well as how often animal control comes. We do have ways, forward-thinking ways, that the animal control could actually come inside the building. The building has a roll-up door at the front of the facility. It doesn't quite now, and I'm not sure if you guys, since you visited the site, but the proposed will have a roll-up door so the animal control can pull in and then actually close the door behind them. So any after-hours dogs that are received, or any dogs that might be challenging getting in and out of the animal control vehicle, will be contained within the facility, as well as that they get out of control as they're exiting the vehicle. The animal control officer will have the entire facility to kind of keep them enclosed, and there will not be any loose dogs running down 16th Street. As far as the noise, like I mentioned, at one of our facilities in which we house sometimes up to 50 animals in the same style of a facility, meaning a warehouse style, metal high roof ceiling, similar to the facility that we're going to be taking over. There is some soundproofing attenuation that we have done, and my next door neighbor, who shares an actual wall with me, is an architect. So when we first moved in, you could imagine 50 barking beagles on any given moment. He came knocking on my door asking me to put in some extra soundproofing, which we've done, and since then it has mitigated quite a bit of the sound within the facility. So as far as outdoor play, I'm going to be straightforward and honest with you. Most of the animals are barking on the inside based on animals getting out and then wanting their turn at barking. So there's some other things that we have done to be able to put up barn doors and kind of section off the facility just so they can't see what else is going on as people are entering into the building and exiting the building. The animals won't just see that and start barking. At some of our other facilities, we don't do that, since the animals need to be open to the public. And for viewing, it's a different style. With the adoption centers, they have the glass doors so that people can actually see in and look at the animals and those types of things. So this will be a completely different style of facility in which some of those things and those barking things can be deterred. However, there won't be as much public walking through that you have at some of the adoption centers where the noise kind of gets a little out of control. So those are some things that we will be doing as far as the noise, and some things we'll be doing as far as the building to kind of improve it and be good neighbors to Mr. Carver, as well as in the across the street neighbor, which I know Jeffrey mentioned had concerns as well. And then does anybody else have any other questions? Did I answer any of the questions you guys had?
Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Dixon.
Quick question. So when you did the soundproofing and talked to the architect, when you're doing the designs for this particular project, were there sound? I'm assuming soundproofing was taken into consideration, and was the architect retain anybody who would give some more advice on where to locate the kennels? You know, if there's any baffles you could put in or any other things you could put in besides the normal panels or the other soundproofing things, just because of the adjacent use as a counseling use, and it would be nice to cut that sound off at that wall. You've got the kennels on the other side, which is nice, but I was just curious what went into the soundproofing design and consideration for this particular space.
The location of the kennels, that makes a huge difference. If the dogs are barking into something versus, and if they can see, as well as barking away from something, that kind of stuff, of where the sound is going to go. The challenging part of this particular facility was the intense high ceilings. I mean, this building is really high. So to be able to get the soundproofing all the way to the top, that's just not going to happen. However, at the level of which the kennels are, we will be addressing the one side of the building in which shares the adjacent use. And the sound attenuation materials are actually the materials that are used for bands and things like that inside there. And then we actually would cover them with a sheet of drywall. So those will actually be inserted into the building. And they go pretty high up, maybe 6 feet, maybe 6 feet, 6.5 feet, something like that. But they're not going to be able to go all the way up. However, we do have another design in mind that because of the climate situation and in a facility like that, there is things we can do to fix the infrared heating system that will also provide some of that soundproofing to go further up in the facility. There's also those lofts that he mentioned that are for storage. Those are all made out of wood versus metal, which is also helpful in sound attenuation. So there's other things that we can put in the walls, as well as using something as, I know it sounds weird, but something as simple as plants and different things that help absorb sound.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Price. I have a couple questions for you. I'm not looking for long answers.
Okay.
First of all, what happened on Ponderosa? Why didn't that approved CUP work out for you?
They did not want to, they actually didn't want to continue the lease. So when I got the conditional use permit, I was actually already over the extended time that they were allowing. So there was attorneys involved in trying to keep the lease active, but they just declined and they decided not to. And it was at our advice that we just felt like, you know what, this isn't meant to be. And so we just moved on. They were very difficult, very challenging. Okay. They were not in this country, so it made it really hard to communicate our needs.
Got it. And are you more comfortable about the situation with this property in terms of those landlord deal issues?
Well, ironically enough, the landlord at 126 is also my landlord at Newport Boulevard.
Okay. My next question, for this application, did you have to pay, again, the planning application fees?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Price. I'll give you an opportunity to come back if you want to respond to any questions from the public.
Thank you so much.
Sure. I will now open public comments. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward to either podium. And if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand option. And if you're joining us by phone and like to speak, please press *9. All right, Ms. Stewart, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Kara Stewart, and I am Vice Chair of the City's Animal Services Committee. I want to join us tonight to express support for this. The staff recommendation does outline many of the challenges that Priceless Pet is currently operating under, and I'd like to go point by point for a couple things just to reinforce them. The city's contract with Priceless Pets currently cannot be fully enforced or rendered because they do need to have the ability to have a separate facility for a shelter. In addition, that shelter does need to call for 24/7 operation of veterinary services. This is not only contractual, but it is in the best interest of the animals. Lisa and Priceless Pets is doing the best they can with the current facility, which is also an adoption center that is open to the public, plus a shelter. And as you can imagine, with a limited space, it's not always in the best interest of the animals or the public. And we're not being able to maximize the contract because of the lack of space. So this facility has been deemed to be more compliant with the contract and certainly in the best interest of the public and the animals, which are part of the Costa Mesa community. Also want to say that with having a separate facility for adoption with the existing facility on Newport Boulevard and the shelter facility, it does separate those, which are very different interests in terms of animal care. It's going to give a better experience for the animals, certainly a better experience for the humans related to the animals, and for the volunteers, because it is a kind of a different experience of working with shelter animals versus those who are up for adoption. And I do want to say a little bit of future casting without being a little bit of a doomsayer. We are hearing from other cities, and I'm sure you've seen news reports, that there is an increase of shelter activities. They're being called for adoptions because of proliferation of economic concerns. Animals are being given up. So if that does come to bear for the city of Costa Mesa, I really hope we have an adequate facility to handle that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, you have the floor.
Hi, good evening. My name is Matthew Carver. I own and operate Barn Life Recovery next door to Ms. Price's proposed business. And Ms. Price, I really appreciate your candidness and your honesty. I really do. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. Again, my issue is I've been there for about 13 years. And we operate a mental health facility, we do counseling, we do meditation, it's sort of a sanctuary. So the sound, of course, is a big issue for me. I wish it wasn't. I honestly, I have no idea what 50 dogs inside of a metal building sounds like. I honestly don't know, but I do know the building that it isn't really in a wall that separates us. It is a metal building, most of which is made out of glass and windows and glass block. And then the rest is corrugated metal. So really sound, Ms. Price explained to me the odor wouldn't be an issue. I believe her on that. It's really the sound that is my primary concern. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else in chambers?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Steve Schweimer. I represent the management of Seabreeze Mobile Home Park, home to 60 working-class families, just 75 feet across from the proposed Priceless Pet Kennel. In only a few days, we were able to gather over 25 signatures from Seabreeze residents in opposition to this kennel. First, a staff packet contains zero quantitative evidence, such as the acoustic study of compliance with Costa Mesa's exterior limits of 55 decibels per day, 50 a night. Peer-reviewed studies from Purdue and the University of Tennessee records kennel interiors at 100 decibels plus. That's 45 to 50 over the nighttime limit. Even one dog measures between 80 to 100. Second, the outdoor will be extremely noisy. The yard conditioned for only 2 dogs is still just 1 hard service away from 60 homes. 2 playful dogs may easily exceed 60 decibels, already past the legal threshold. There is no data in the record to the contrary. Third, soundproofing condition B7 is vague. It merely says the kennel must install soundproofing. It sets no STC rating, no roof or door treatment, and no post-construction test. Again, it's a full metal building. It amplifies the sound on anything. An undefined promise is not substantial evidence. Fourth, because the city contracts with the operator, The facility must accept animals around the clock under CEQA guidelines, section 1530.2 subsection C. A 24-hour animal intake qualifies as an unusual circumstance, meaning the Class 1 exemption fails and the city must prepare at least a negative declaration. Finally, it is my understanding that one of the commissioners may have a conflict of interest regarding the applicant. Out of respect for transparency, we respect voluntary recusal under the government code sections 87100 and 84308, if there is such a conflict. Your legal opinion tonight are clear. Deny the CPU. No evidence show the kennel can meet the city's own noise limits or CPO findings for health or welfare. If despite these risks, the commission is inclined to consider approval tonight, we've filed a document with the commission, and Exhibit F proposes building modifications to reduce noise to the legal threshold. We respectfully ask, at minimum, you adopt those conditions before issuing any permit. 60 families and the Ramada Inn Hotel and the Recovery Center that shares this block will live with the consequences. Ask yourself, would you want this animal kennel with 50 barking dogs 75 feet from where you live? Please protect your constituents and vote your conscience. And I'm very grateful and appreciative to be able to present our case. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. All right. Last chance for anyone in chambers. Seeing no one. Anna, do we have anybody on Zoom or phone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Price, if you'd like, you're more than welcome to come to the podium and conclude your remarks or respond to any comments you may have heard. Go ahead.
In conclusion, obviously, and to address that gentleman's concerns, which I wasn't made aware of all of his concerns prior to, I was made aware of Mr. Carver's. We don't have 50 dogs. That analogy was for one of the facilities in which is my intake center. So that was a situation in which we rescued Virginia Beagles, and so we had 50 in that particular facility. But this particular facility is not for our intake center. So again, just to go on record to make sure everyone understands, within my contract, I think my contracted obligation is only to have 10 kennels. Again, going back to, we have been operating under this particular contract already. So on average, we have no more than, say, 12 dogs at any moment, and that's if our kennels are over what our allotted amount of kennels are. We have no intention of any other outside boarding for this particular facility. So, and then also to address the outdoor play yards, I think everyone here, I would hope, and if not, please go adopt at least 2 more animals. I would hope that everyone has a couple of animals who've ran around in your backyards, maybe played with the ball or whatnot, and those play yards are strictly to get the animals exercised while they're in our care. The actual animals that are staying there would not be staying anything over their initial stray hold and or their vet care time of stay. And again, to speak on Ms. Stewart, she had mentioned that we have 24-hour care. And so there will be somebody there to help mitigate the noise in the event we were to have a nuisance barker on his very limited stay with us. So there's other things as well. I mean, there will be somebody there that if there's a dog just barking his head off, somebody can address that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any final questions of staff? Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you. Mr. Raimondo, could you put on the screen the aerial photo of the site plan? The higher altitude aerial photo of the surrounding area.
Vicinity map.
There we go. Can you identify on that map for me where Mr. Carver's facility is?
To identify that, I could go on another slide for the property.
Yeah, it's right.
Okay.
It'll be the building shaded in light blue.
I'm sorry, say that again?
His building is the the building that's shaded in light blue on the site.
Got it, okay. And can you identify for me relative to that building where the outdoor area is for the dog?
Yeah, I do have another slide that shows that.
Okay.
It's gonna be this area here, highlighted in yellow.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Dixon.
Would staff be able to address the public comment regarding the CEQA exemption? Basically stating that it was inappropriate due to the nature of the use. The nature of the use under the guidelines was a particular use that was considered a particular category and as such was not appropriate for that particular exemption. I just want to make sure we cross that T and dot that I. Would that be city attorney or director or?
So the CEQA exemption that's provided is a Class 1 exemption for the existing structure. When staff reviewed the project, we did not believe that it met any of the exceptions to the exemption and that it was classified as a Class 1 and it fit the definition of a project that was exempt. So we're recommending that the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA.
Okay. And as far as condition of approval number 7 goes, is that staff's, we just heard that we're probably not going to be able to treat the roof. Does staff consider that part of the separate and distinct from walls and soundproofing so that noise generated from the use is contained within the building? So I'm assuming that if this moves forward and folks complain under the condition of approval regarding quiet enjoyment or this or any other, that the operational or would adding a condition of, do we need to bolster this condition of approval to anticipate potentially what would the operational considerations be? I mean, the other condition, I want to make sure we're not handicapping competing conditions of approval.
There could be an opportunity to possibly enhance the conditions so that if there are concerns or complaints received, they can work with the planning department and maybe subject to approval by the director for modifications. So it wouldn't necessarily have to come back to the planning commission for additional sound attenuation, but we could work through that if we do receive complaints.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I will close the public hearing. May I have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Dixon. What's your motion?
Let's see if I can not screw this up as horribly as I did the last time.
We've forgotten about that already.
It was pretty bad. So I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project is exempt from the provisions of CEQA pursuant to a Class 1 exemption, and that we approve conditional use permit PCUP-25-0007 based on the findings of fact and subject to the conditions of approval. And I would like to modify the conditions of approval number 8 that we were just discussing. No, I'm sorry, number 7, I believe, that I'm sorry, number 8. The operator shall institute whatever security and operational measures, comma, including sound attenuation, comma, are necessary to comply with this requirement. And that would be my motion.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Andrade. Commissioner Dixon, you'd like to speak to your motion?
I would. I have a tremendous amount of concern about the noise and the parking. However, this is a general industrial zone, and we have some pretty robust conditions of approval. It is a city contract as well. So I would assume that there will be a good deal of attention on this, and I think that the folks in California Seabreeze, or the Seabreeze across the street, and especially the adjacent neighbor, will make their voices heard if there are noise issues that come up. There could be tomorrow, there could be something that goes in by right that has some very noisy characteristics due to the zone characteristics. I believe we have some good conditions of approval. I also think that we have a history with this operator. I don't know if adopting a pet from there is a conflict of interest. I don't think it is. We've adopted several. But during that process, we'll be sitting inside that tiny little area, and it's ear splitting. It's ear splitting. And it's typically when a dog is leaving or coming in and another dog wants to go out, like Ms. Price was describing. It's a very compact space, and it can be extraordinarily loud. But when you walk outside, it's not quite, the barking is not very obvious. I'm just, because we'll go outside and wait or whatever. I think that there are ways to mitigate this sound, and if there aren't, we have some robust conditions of approval. And I think in particular, number 8, a quiet enjoyment is typically not a general industrial condition of approval. Let's just be frank. And so I think that this is pretty robust, and I think that if this does become an issue and it does impede upon the quiet enjoyment of the folks living across the street or the adjacent business, and I see that we have a little bit of airspace between those buildings, the play area is in the back. I think this can work, and I think it should be given the opportunity to work based on the operator's history in the city and their prior approval, and just my own personal observations of being in their facility and seeing how on top of some of those issues they are and their volunteers are. With any sort of operation that relies on volunteers, there are going to be some things that happen, and that's just unavoidable. However, I think they have a decent management of the volunteers. I have a tremendous amount of concern about the parking. I've looked into AP 2097. I reached out to Director Ty. I think it's wildly inappropriate for commercial uses, but I'm not a state legislator, and that's what the state's done for now. You know, when I was over at the facility adopting a pet, you know, there was a team of volunteers from one of the accounting firms in Costa Mesa. Did they drive? Where did they park? Will they park? You know, it's a very heavily parking impacted area. And I think that I don't know what we can do. It's a city council issue as far as how to address that. Anything we could do, but I think it's a very good operation. We have been involved with them as far as adopting pets several times over the last 5 years, and the operation is well run. There's not an obvious extreme odor of pet waste when you go in there. The volunteers seem conscientious and on top of what they're doing. And I think that due to the stakes with a city contract and with adjacent neighbors and with folks living across the street, that, you know, any problems that do arise will arise and they'll be addressed. And I hope that they're addressed satisfactorily, but we do have some fairly robust conditions of approval in here to protect the neighbors and the adjacent businesses. So that's my motion. I think it's a great business. I think they do a great job, and it's desperately needed, this facility. So that's my motion.
Okay. Commissioner Andrade, would you like to speak to your second?
Just to, again, reiterate, I appreciate Ms. Price for you helping us meet this critical need in our community. And I also appreciate all your attention to detail on what you're going to do for noise and noise abatement in the space, right? We heard the metal walls, but you're going to be adding a layer of noise retention and some plywood, and plants. So I really appreciate the efforts that you're doing that to, as you said, be a good neighbor. And yeah, I definitely echo Commissioner Dixon's comments. Please, for the neighbors and Seabreeze across the street, hold them accountable, right? We have a code enforcement department. So should there be an issue and it becomes too loud and it becomes a deterrent to the services that you're providing right next door, it's a conversation to be had, right? And finding solutions to address that. while, again, we're meeting city's critical need in our community. That's all.
Any other commissioners want to speak? Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be supporting the motion. I think both Commissioner Dixon and Commissioner Andrade spoke to the areas of concern and interest that I share. I'm appreciative of Ms. Stewart speaking on behalf of Priceless Pets and the importance of this facility to the contract and the city's interests in that contract. I also appreciate Steve showing up. It's the second time I've seen him. There was another application that came before us a while ago, also on 16th Street, that didn't turn out to be viable. But I have a similar reaction to the concerns that the Seabreeze community might have about this. And my concerns are that this is the time and place for us to consider all information as part of our deliberative process. I can't really make a determination how serious the residents of Seabreeze are about their concern for noise. I can only observe that none of them are here. And I don't draw a conclusion from that. I just have an absence of information for me to fully consider what their concerns might be about noise. With regard to Mr. Carver's concerns, you know, I think you're going to hear a dog bark. I don't think you're going to hear a dog bark all day long, but as Commissioner Andrade stated, we have condition of approval that speaks to this operator's obligations. Clearly, it's their intent to comply with them, and I'm hopeful that things will work out. I'm not blindly hopeful. If I thought for a moment that this was something that was really going to be so disruptive to you, to the other neighbors, then I'd have serious concerns about supporting it. But this is an industrial area, people firing up cars and motorcycles and boat motors or whatever they're doing in this area. A dog barking, I can't fully calculate how much more or less disruptive that could be than other noises that exist in the area. But again, we have conditions of approval, and if you find that those are not being met, then you lodge your concerns with the city, and they can pull this conditional use permit back up in front of us for a review. So this isn't a once and done. This is our expectation going forward, and I do wish the best of luck to Ms. Price and her entire operation.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair Zick. I'll be supporting the motion as well. I think my colleagues stated pretty articulately all the reasons, and I shared their opinions on that, as well as their concerns, especially those mentioned by Vice Chair Zick. I believe this application stands on its own merits, as it should. And with that, I know that the city has a vested interest in making sure this succeeds. I understand and appreciate a contractual obligation that Ms. Price has with the city. And we've had success so far. And I think that, as Vice Chair Zick pointed out, if there are issues that come up, the city will hear about it, whether it's from neighbors or constituents who obviously have the opportunity to come here in chambers to make their concerns known. It is as well a conditional use permit, so by its very nature, those conditions are there to make sure that the operations do run as anticipated. If there are no other comments, I will call for the question. I'm not getting a option. One more time.
That motion carries 6-0.
That decision is final unless appealed to the City Council within 7 days. All right, I think we're power on through. Anna, can you please read the title for public hearing item number 2?
Public hearing item number 2, a resolution recommending that the City Council give first reading to an ordinance to amending Title 13 of the Costa Mesa Municipal Code pertaining to minor technical updates. Please note we have not received public comments on this item. This is a call for any ex parte communications.
Any ex parte communications? Okay. I will turn this over to Mr. Garcia and Ms. Curley to present the item. Welcome. And Mr. Inlows, are you here for moral support? Okay.
Apologies, Commissioners, had to get out my notes.
No worries. Take your time.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Caitlin Curley, Assistant Planner, and this evening myself and my colleague Froylin Garcia are presenting to you the Zoning Code Amendment number PCTY 25-0001. Zoning code amendments are a necessary component of good planning practice. They are a method for cities to regularly update their zoning codes to meet state law, clarify code sections, and align the code with current practices and procedures. It is best practice to conduct these zoning code amendments annually. This particular zoning code amendment includes only technical items, such as codifying established procedures and practices, and updating the zoning code to meet state law. It is not intended to make any changes to city policy. This zoning code amendment includes the codification of several existing zoning administrator determinations. Zoning administrator determinations are internal procedures approved by the zoning administrator. They provide interpretations and guidelines to address ambiguity in the zoning code and address unique uses. Zoning administrator determinations are used by staff daily to review projects. For example, one zoning administrator determination establishes the placement and screening requirements for ground-mounted mechanical equipment, such as air conditioning units. Codifying these requirements helps staff and applicants during the review process. The first item codifies the fences, walls, and landscaping handout that established the city's requirements for these structures, shown here. This update will consolidate the existing handout with the zoning code and encourages good design and protects residents from dangerous conditions. Item 2 codifies another zoning administrator determination that establishes the parking rate and use category for individual and group counseling businesses. This update will consolidate the existing determination and remove barriers for small single operator businesses. Item 3 codifies an existing zoning administrator determination that clarifies screening requirements for pipes and conduits located on the exterior of buildings. This update will consolidate the existing determination, encourage good design, and create objective design standards as required by state law. The fourth item also codifies an existing zoning administrator determination that clarifies screening requirements for equipment, antenna equipment, specifically at cell sites. This update will consolidate the existing determination with the zoning code and reduce unsightly ground-mounted equipment while maintaining consistency with state and federal law. Item 5 codifies Urgency Ordinance 2121, which implements SB 9 within the city. The item also includes minor changes to the ordinance to clarify requirements. This update will consolidate the urgency ordinance with the zoning code and also provide clarification on development standards to encourage good design. Item 6 includes minor changes to the city's accessory dwelling unit regulations to address comments from HCD, that is the California Department of Housing and Community Development. This update will bring the city into compliance with state law as required by HCD.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Assistant Planner for Long Garcia, and I will be presenting the next 4 items. Item 7 deals with contiguous window area. This item codifies an existing zoning administrative determination that clarified the contiguous definition by stating that windows that are separated from other windows by solid walls are not considered contiguous. This update will consolidate the existing determination with the zoning code and encourage clear and uncluttered windows throughout the city. Item 8 deals with mechanical rooms. This item codifies an existing zoning administrative determination that established that electrical and mechanical rooms are not usable spaces, and therefore their square footage should be excluded from parking calculations. This update will consolidate the determination with the zoning code and incentivize interior placement of equipment by encouraging it to be housed within a room rather than mounted on the roof or ground. Item 9 deals with the screening of ground-mounted equipment. The item codifies an existing zoning administrative determination that established the permitted locations for ground-mounted mechanical and electrical equipment. This determination also provided mitigation methods for situations where minimum distances could not be met. This update will consolidate the determination and address one of the most commonly asked questions that staff receives at the counter through emails and phone calls on a day-to-day basis. Item 10 deals with raised decks. A raised deck is an elevated outdoor platform, terrace, or patio above ground, often supported by posts and can be used for seating and recreational spaces. The zoning code is currently silent in regards to raised decks and allows for low-profile structures that are under 6.5 feet tall to be located in the rear and side yards with 0 setbacks. This has led to privacy concerns as the average person who stands on a raised deck is able to have a clear view into neighboring yards. Through this update, development standards would be updated to require raised decks that are 18 inches and taller to comply with main structure setbacks. This update will address privacy concerns by providing clear standards, including a defined height limit and setback requirements for raised decks.
Staff has identified some potential concerns with the tables within item 11, the shared parking requirements that are provided to you as attachment 3 of this project staff report. To give staff time to further evaluate the analysis, staff is recommending the deferral of the shared parking requirements item to the August 25th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing. The proposed ordinance is in conformance with the city's general plan, including policy land use 3.10, minimizing the effects of new development on the privacy and character of surrounding neighborhoods. Policy land use 6.2, continue to promote and support the vitality of commercial uses to meet the needs of local residents and that support regional serving commercial centers. Policy land use 6.7, encourage new and retain existing businesses that provide local shopping and services. And policy land use 6.19 that provide flexibility and support for development of residential, office, small retail centers, and similar uses that would serve local residents and would also benefit from the high visibility along major corridors outside of significant commercial or industrial zones. The proposed ordinance is also in conformance with the California Environmental Quality Act, that is CEQA, pursuant to the general rule in that there is no possibility that the zoning code amendment will have a significant impact on the environment. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission find that the project is exempt from the provisions of CEQA pursuant to the general rule, recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving zoning code amendment PCTY-25-0001, amending Title 13 of the Costa Mesa Municipal Code pertaining to minor technical updates on item numbers 1 through 10. And finally, staff recommends that the Planning Commission continue the amendment of the shared parking requirements, or item number 11, to the August 25th, 2025 Planning Commission hearing. Thank you for your time. Froylan and I are here for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Curley and Mr. Garcia. Commissioners, any questions of staff? None? Mr. Martinez?
Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. So just for clarity, can you describe what the changes were between last time and this time?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. There were 3 changes made between this time and last time, the study session that we had on June 23rd. The first change was correcting a typographical error where image 13.742 was incorrectly labeled as 13.752. The second item was clarifying that the transparency requirements, that's 13.74E, would apply to non-residential zones only. That's commercial, industrial, and institutional zones. And also, we moved our modifications to the elevation and screening requirements section from in between existing text sections to all at the end for clarity and consistency with future citations.
Okay, following up on that, I have a few questions. So, Ms. Curley, you said that with regard to the transparency for the walls, that applies only to commercial, industrial, and institutional zones. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, because I'm looking at staff report, page 2 and page 3, which summarizes some of the recommendations from the Planning Commission, or at least our interests. And one of them on page 3 said, Commissioners expressed an interest in modifying the proposed fences and wall standards to prohibit solid 6-foot-high walls and front setbacks in residential zones. So is that the case still?
That was discussed at the study session. We included this transparency requirement the way we did to remain in compliance with the previously approved and established walls, fences, and landscaping handouts. That's why it's written the way it is. But if the Planning Commission would like to modify the text in a different way, we are happy to do that.
Okay. I don't see here the exhibit that we had the first time around, which was the fences. There's a diagram. I don't, if you can find it, Commissioner Dixon, please let me know, but I didn't see it explicitly.
Is it the one on the screen?
Yes. Yes. Was that in our, or was that the very last page? Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, so staff's proposal is to allow for only solid block walls, solid walls in the front setback, is that right?
The requirement is to require only permit solid walls outside of the front landscape, of the landscape setbacks of non-residential zones, depending on the property line in question and the type of street it's adjacent to. That is generally somewhere between 20 and 15 feet. So within that area, the way the amendment is currently written, a solid wall would be prohibited, but a transparent wall would be allowed.
In the front setback, but outside of that area. So let's say, because I'm looking at this diagram, and the 6-foot max fence, is that intended to show a solid wall?
Yes. In non-residential zones, a 6-foot block wall, solid wall, would be permitted outside of those setbacks.
Okay, so it's permitted, it's not prescribed. In other words, you don't have to put up a 6-foot block wall.
Not per code. There's certain applications or developments where it might be required or encouraged, but not specifically in the code.
Because the policy discussion that we had, and I think it was former Vice Chair Toller who had raised these issues about trying to have more activity related to the street, a better streetscape, and having the block walls basically runs counter to that. I tend to agree with that assessment. I don't know if my colleagues do. We can put it up for discussion, but I think at least the property owner should have the option within some guidelines. A solid block wall seems to be a little heavy for trying to create some relationship to the street there. But let me move on to another one, which was the group counseling. So again, in our staff report, I think we're referencing our study session, we talked about lowering the parking rate for group counseling. And it appears that we're back to the original proposal at 10 spaces per 1,000 square feet. Is that right?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Again, I think that's a fairly onerous parking standard. So my vote would be to modify that, but we can obviously have a discussion about that. All right, that's all for me. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Zick.
I agree with you about the block wall, as you might expect. I also agree with you about the parking ratio. The question I've got, when we had this discussion, gosh, was it 2 weeks ago or was it a month ago?
A month ago.
A month ago. A request was made, and I added my name to that request to get a list of all SB 9 approved projects in the city along with their addresses, and I have not received that. So I'm renewing my request for that information. If I can get staff to acknowledge that, I will move on.
Yes, Commissioner, that information is ongoing. We will get that to you.
Thank you. No more questions.
Okay, Commissioner Martinez.
Just to go back to walls and fences, and because I do not have legal training or background, I want to specifically understand, let's go page 200, the requirements for the opacity of walls and fences in residential zones. So, as I understand it, this applies to everything except single-family zones, because that's what it says in 1375, A. And then in 3 and 4, so now this is about multifamily residential, that 6-foot-high solid opaque walls or fences. So does solid opaque describe both walls and fences? So solid opaque walls or solid opaque fences? Or can the fence be, let's call it transparent?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. The fence could be transparent if a homeowner wanted it to be.
As written?
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess, because I just realized it, what are our fence and wall requirements for single-family homes, for R1 zone? Where are those?
It says it's solid area.
This particular section was intended to apply for apply also to R1 zones, Commissioner. That's something that I can absolutely change at the end of your motion, sir.
Okay. So this would be in, I guess, just in residential zones, and then you could just get rid of everything else.
Could I just interrupt with a clarification? So could I ask Assistant Planner Carly, are the words except R1, is that an error?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, Commissioner Dixon.
And thank you, Commissioner Martinez. I was searching for that as well. I agree with the, I would like the option to have a taller wall simply because, as I mentioned before, some people have pets or other circumstances. However, I completely agree with no block wall or masonry wall or solid edifice, on the front property line. There are some gorgeous walls and fences around town that have design elements and, space you can see and stuff like that. So there are some that are very private that still manage to look beautiful and complement the street. So that's my general comment there. So appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Nope, go
I
ahead.
apologize. And I do think that in 1389, either in the footnotes of the table or in the language of the code section itself, we do need to address state legislation that impacts that. Because in 1389, it basically says that the parking, and I, of course, lost the page. The minimum amount of off-street parking as established in table 1389 shall be provided. And so if that parcel or property is within one of those zones, then it shall not. So I don't know how you want to clarify that, but that's just a suggestion for this code cleanup. And there are other state legislation that also may impact that as well. So.
That is correct, Commissioner. Oftentimes, there are some state laws that, my apologies, sir.
Yes, this is a good opportunity to incorporate a line in that section, just to reference that AB 2097 would change some of those situations. Yeah, since we're in here. Thank you.
Or even something as simple as instead shall, comma, except where preempted by state
Correct.
law, or something
Yes,
like that.
absolutely.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Okay, if there are no more questions of staff, I will open the public hearing and open for public comments. If you'd like to speak to this item, please approach the podium. And if you're home on Zoom or on your phone, you can use the raise hand option or press *9. Anna, do we have anyone?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm going to close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Any final questions of staff? If not, I'll close the public hearing. And would someone like to make a motion? I'm looking at you, Commissioner Martinez.
Okay. I was trying to avoid making a motion because I have some other things that I want to add in here. But for now, I'm gonna actually make a motion and then make my own substitute motion to defeat my motion, just to have two things that we can actually talk about. Okay, just procedurally.
I mean, I would say make the motion that you want to make.
Right.
I mean,
Start with that.
sure. Okay. Well,
Maybe we'll surprise you.
I may be surprised. So I move that we adopt a resolution to find that the project is exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21080.174 and CEQA Guideline Section 15282H. And I recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving Code Amendment PCTY 250001, amending Title 13 of the Municipal Code pertaining to minor technical updates, except for item number 11. I further want to modify the group counseling parking requirement to be 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, and remove everything after in residential zones for the fencing code section. And then the actual point that I'm trying to make is, I mean, I've been on this commission for a bit over a year. This is my first chance at this. And knowing how busy staff is, I'm a bit nervous that this might be one of my last chances for a very long time to do some zoning code updates and some actual good zoning code reform and some policy changes as well that I would like to recommend to the City Council. So I have a few more minor and a couple major updates that I would like to propose for the zoning code for City Council consideration.
Let me stop you right there, though, just because what's been noticed as the agenda has a limited scope. So I think we have to stick to what we have before us. I appreciate your interest in wanting to broaden that, but I think we have to do that separately.
As far as I could tell, it just says amending Title 13 in the title.
Yes, but I think, and I'll defer to the city attorney on this, I think that the intent here is to have a kind of a limited zoning code update, which are more technical in nature, not policy driven.
I concur with that analysis.
Okay. In that case, I'll also just ask staff, as part of this motion, to agendize for a future planning commission meeting updates to the zoning code for the following sections. And again, some minor, some major. Amending the definition of density bonus in section 13.6 by replacing 25% with 5% to comply with Government Code section 65915F4. Amend section 13.9B by replacing 5 with 7 to reflect our 7-member city council. Amend table 1332 by adding a line break in the minimum lot width for newly subdivided lots row in the merged cell. Amend section 1396 by adding minor before conditional use permit to have valet parking allowed through MCUPs rather than CUPs. Amend section 13-106A2E by replacing palm trees with palms. Delete section 13205B12, which describes meandering sidewalks as an amenity that could be included in the rebuilding process of multifamily homes. And then the two major ones. Amend table 1347A to require drive-throughs in a pedestrian opportunity zone be subject to approval of a conditional use permit by adding, or see footnote 4, to the cells in the row drive-through operations, and adding footnote 4 to the table stating applies only to properties within a pedestrian priority area, as defined in Figure C6, pedestrian opportunity zones of the circulation element of the general plan. And finally, Mr. Chairman, we have been talking about one specific zoning issue more than I think any other tonight, and that is, of course, parking. So I further hope to agendize to amend 36 sections of the zoning code and 1 chapter of the zoning code to eliminate minimum parking requirements, which has created limits to local business, to residents. These requirements have been set by a parking pseudoscience, which is why we had to remove item 11 from consideration today. I've seen some graphs from the Institute of Transportation Engineers that are just way out there and not practical or common sense and have a wasted valuable land. For example, even with the individual counseling parking requirement that I'm proposing today, 4 out of 1,000 square feet, that means more space will be dedicated to parking than will be dedicated to the counseling business. So that is my motion.
Okay. I'll second for discussion. Do you want to speak to your motion? Or
Sure. So I didn't expect to get this far. I am very appreciative of the second, and I want to address first the few items that I think we all kind of agreed upon that are actually part of tonight. Item 11, I'm happy that that's being continued, as I mentioned. The other items in here, they're just common sense updates to our zoning code. Our planning staff has had to answer many, many questions, I'm sure, many questions about all these different requirements and what they technically mean. So I'm very happy that we're actually doing this update. And for the part of the motion to actually agendize discussion on these other items, a lot of them also minor. We have a 7-member city council. We should say that in our zoning code. I think that's an easy enough fix that we can all agree upon. And those 2 major ones, I hope to have a very fruitful discussion at whenever that may be agendized for in the future, because those are things that will improve our community character. They're things that will improve walkability, which is a goal in the circulation element of the general plan. And for parking, we have spent so much time talking about parking, and there's many businesses that would not exist if they had to be strictly held to those parking requirements. There's many residents who would not be here if we forced these communities to have the parking that we say in our code is required. And we just waste a lot of valuable space. Anything above 3.65 spaces per 1,000 square feet means that there's more space for the storage of personal vehicles than there is for living, working, shopping, eating, etc. So that's why I hope that we can have that discussion in the future. Thank you.
okay. I just want to clarify in your motion, which I think you did a very good job of breaking it into those 2. The first part of it, though, with relationship to fences and walls, so it applies to all residential zones. There's no requirement for 6-foot-high block wall. And then the group counseling was at 4 per 1,000, correct?
Yes. So group counseling to 4 per 1,000, and for residential, can you repeat your point on that one?
Oh, I thought it was, my concern was about the requiring a 6-foot block wall past the initial front yard setback.
Yeah, so based on staff's answer, and I think the graph, I think the 6-foot will be at the 10-foot line from the property line, and they have the option to make it somewhat transparent.
Okay, I just want to make sure the language reflects that. Okay, so I I support that. I do as well support your suggestion for agendizing a much more comprehensive discussion about other items that we should have in a zoning code cleanup, including policy discussions about, and not limited to parking. I think that conversation should start here, and if we can come to some consensus or at least come up with a recommendation or 2, we should send that to council for their consideration. We've been talking about it for a long time. I think we need to kind of move on it, or at least get that ball rolling at this point. Commissioners, any other comments? Vice Chair Zick?
So I'm not entirely sure I support the motion or don't support the motion. I kind of feel like I just listened to a bill being offered up in Congress that does something simple and then it's stuffed with a whole bunch of pork. The basic motion of approving these code updates, that aspect of it I completely support. If as part of that motion, we've tacked on a wish list of other things that somebody might like to do from a policy standpoint, I couldn't object more. Not only to the items, but the appropriateness of tacking that onto a motion to deal with what's in front of us in the agenda. So if that's part of the motion, I won't be supporting it. So I'm asking for clarification whether agendizing anything in the future is part of the motion or if that's simply a wish conversation that has been audibleized to staff.
Mr. Preziosi, what's the best mechanism then to accomplish what Commissioner Martinez suggested, and I agree would be worth the commission's time in the future?
So I would suggest that Commissioner Martinez, at the next adding notice meeting, articulate in writing as a council member initiated item what it is he wants the Planning Commission to direct staff to do. So when we come back as that he notices a Planning Commission item, the Planning Commission will then decide what items the Planning Commission wants staff to look into, direct staff accordingly, and then staff would come back with direction from the Planning Commission.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez, having heard that, do you want to amend your motion?
You're going to have to help me with wording. But I guess it would be amend it so that instead of these specific points that I made, the motion would be to agendize for a future Planning Commission meeting, having an item where the Planning Commission can then direct staff to study and come back with major or minor zoning code updates.
I think what the city attorney is saying is that that has to be done separately at a next noticed meeting with everything that you want to put in it. But appending it to this particular item, I don't think is A, going to be successful, but B, also consistent with what we're required to consider for this particular item, if that makes sense. In other words, it may be worth just doing the initial motion, as you suggested, and then coming back at our next meeting with the motion to agendize what you've described.
And can I just get confirmation that it would be agendized?
No.
Well, because if it has to be on the agenda in order for us to talk about it, then I need to make sure that it's actually on the agenda for us to request staff to talk about it.
Director Tai?
So I'm going to launch into a much broader answer than I think any member or the chair, vice chair, of the commission is ready for, but I'm going to do it anyway. The Development Services' top priority right now is the citywide rezoning and the Fairview Developmental Specific Plan. That all leads into the city's effort to obtain a certified housing element, likely, even at full speed ahead, we're looking at late next year in order to be able to submit that. It is with any spare minute that we have that we are trying to take on technical code cleanups in an effort to improve the day-to-day questions and time spent on interpreting zoning code sections. So at this time, staff resources does not allow for a comprehensive level zoning code cleanup. That said, it is fully our obligation, responsibility, and intent to pursue that, which is what we're doing tonight. And also at the last 2 meetings ago, I believe Commissioner Martinez submitted a list of about 45 items that we are working on. I understand Assistant Planner Curley had prepared some responses for my review, but given our preparation today, we just ran out of time. We weren't able to report back on that. So we will add the items that we heard, at least the topical items that we heard, to that list. And what I foresee is us being able to do is we can bring back a study session on technical code cleanups and maybe certain policy items for discussion without any particular policy direction, because that is subject to analysis, public participation, and discussion before a particular policy direction, can be committed to. But I'm happy to bring back a study session on prioritization, what we can do. We can do many little items, we can do a few big items, and perhaps that would be a fruitful discussion in front of the Planning Commission. So I can say I can offer that up, but the realistic expectation, given the resources that we have, is that we will have to take it in pieces given our other priorities. So I wanted to share that with the commission, and I hope that helps a bit. Thanks.
Okay, so I think that's fair comment. But going back to what we have before us, Commissioner Martinez, do you want to amend your motion? Or you don't have to.
I'm trying to figure out what then is the correct process, procedure. I think what I heard from staff is enough to say in the future we'll probably get to it, and I'm fine taking it out of the motion, a request to agendize, if the second is okay with that, with just outside of the motion, the knowledge that we'll eventually have a study session with staff.
Yes, that's my expectation.
Okay, that's my amended motion now.
Okay, all right.
The second concurs.
Yes, I concur. Any other comments, commissioners? Vice Chair Zick?
I'll just complete the thought then. I will support this motion. And I appreciated what Director Tai and the city attorney laid out. They're both important. They're process considerations on how new things are taken up by the Planning Commission, and there's also workload considerations, and that clearly is within the purview of Director Tai. If it was as simple as me turning on the mic and telling you what I want on the agenda, and voila, it's on the agenda, I think you might find that to not be an acceptable process, just as I'm finding it not to be. I'll support this motion, though.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Martinez?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, then let's call for the question.
That motion carries 6-0.
All right. No old business, no new business. Departmental reports. Mr. Yang, anything from Public Services?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So for the planning, so for the Public Works report, it's just a reminder from the last July 14th Planning Commission meeting. So Public Works staff with its consultant will deliver an e-bike safety course for Newport Mesa Unified School District students at Estancia High School on Thursday, August 7th during the back-to-school registration event. In addition to that, OCTA will deliver a similar course at the second back-to-school registration event and Wednesday, August 13th. So just a friendly reminder, and that's it for me, and I defer back to the chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yang. Ms. Tai, anything from Development Services?
Yes, thank you. A couple of follow-ups to some commissioner questions. So there was a question on the accessory dwelling unit prototypes. Through the development of those prototypes, the city is working with several local architects to develop those prototypes. Some of that timing is dependent on the architects resubmitting and getting the plan, keeping the plans moving. We have found some of that timing to be a challenge. That said, as soon as our architect partners in the community are able to submit and get those prototypes approved, they will then be posted and available for public usage. With regard to a question about major changes on projects that are referred to the ultimate deciding body by the Planning Commission. So specifically with regard to the project at 220 Victoria Place, the City Council did approve that project contrary to the Planning Commission's recommendation. There were two changes that did not change the overall project description. One was to add a type of a pedestrian barrier between the roadway and the sidewalk on a segment of the new sidewalk on Victoria Place, and the other was to work on some architecture to orient more front-facing elements to the front of the development rather than the side view. I would assess those as minor changes. They did not change the unit count, the layout, the features, any of the deviations. And so given that, I do not believe it enters into the realm where it has to come back to Planning Commission. And so we did look at that, and so I wanted to circle back on that. There are a few other announcements. Commissioner, I think Martinez helped me on the kickoff for the rezoning outreach. So that effort is coined the Neighborhoods Where We All Belong effort, and our outreach kickoff will be Wednesday night, July 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. at Norma Herzog. And I also want to take this opportunity to announce a few more outreach dates coming out of the Neighborhoods Where We All Belong effort. After the citywide kickoff on July 30th, we will be moving on to neighborhood and area specific outreach events for that. And so some save the dates on there. We've got Saturday, August 23rd for a walking tour for West Side Costa Mesa. We have Thursday, August 21st. That's at City Hall in the evening. That's going to be for the Newport and Harbor Boulevard corridors. And then we're targeting sometime in, I think it's September 10th, for the North Costa Mesa and Sobeca areas for a neighborhood-specific workshop. And one of the reasons we're breaking that up is that all the different areas in the city have different characters, different concerns, different circulation patterns, and we wanted to make sure that the geographical areas gave every person in that neighborhood a fair chance to talk about their neighborhood-specific concerns without getting too distracted. And then lastly, on a separate effort that the department is also taking on, the department will be doing a pop-up for the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan at Concerts in the Park, and that's tomorrow night over at, it looks like Lions Park, I think. And so we'll be there from 4 to 8 for the CAP effort, community survey and input. So we'll be out in the community a lot this summer, very busy, but I think hopefully the dates work for people, and we'll hope to see you there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tai. Mr. Preziosi, anything from City Attorney's Office?
Not this evening, Chair.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you.